Welcome back to the Wirex Podcast. Today we're exploring a shift that's happening quietly, but it's changing everything. While the world watches crypto prices, the real story is unfolding in payments. Our guest is Slava Garal, Global Head of Payments at Wirex. He's here to uncover how crypto is silently reshaping the way money moves. Faster, cheaper, and smarter, without most people even noticing. Welcome, Slava.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Lianna.
Thank you for coming to the show.
Yeah, really glad to be here, and I hope my insights will be interesting. Yeah, shoot your questions.
Well, I'm sure they will. Maybe we can start off with your professional background, how you got to where you are today.
Sure. Well, it's almost 20 years. I'm in financial industry in different regions worldwide. Originally, I started with various roles at banks, followed by heavy involvement in the card payments, including a few years at Visa, big issuers, big acquirers, and now almost 5 years at Wirex, where I initially was driving the Asia Pacific region, which became really huge for the company. And now I'm leading the global payments agenda here.
So that's really interesting. But let's start with the big picture view, right? Why do you think most people still don't realize how much crypto is already shaping the future of payments?
I think there are two fundamental reasons why people don't see these happenings. First is a fundamental misunderstanding of crypto in general as a terminology. We're not here to replace something or something old with something new, right? We are instead embedding new technologies and the way of doing things into existing ecosystems using the existing rails. So to make things faster, efficient, cheaper, you name it. And any evolution, as you know, is actually happening behind the screen, behind the scenes. You just happen to start receiving the funds, the transfers in a minute instead of 3-5 days of waiting for them. And at a cost of fraction of a dollar instead of $10 per transfer, right? So because these things just silently happening in our world, it seems like market takes this for granted. The second reason is that many traditional finance, if not majority of the finance folks, are still stuck in legacy thinking. They either see the crypto as a threat or risk, or mostly as a gambling instrument. That's why they don't see what's going behind, and they don't see that these technologies is actually a technological backbone of the next generation of payments. So yeah, these are the two reasons why people don't see.
Yeah, I really love what you said, about, legacy thinking as well as, embedding, right, the technologies into our everyday lives. And I feel like, there's definitely, a huge gap in the way we integrate these technologies into our lives, right? But then, of course, it comes down to education. But so when you hear silent revolution in crypto payments, what comes to mind? Are you thinking about infrastructure, user adoption, or perhaps something else?
That's an interesting one, actually. For me, it's more about integration, Lianna. You may have heard this phrase, building a bridge between traditional crypto and finance, between Web 2, Web 3, TradFi, DeFi, etc. Right? So this kind of building a bridge phrase became pretty heavily used cliche. To be frank, I also use it quite often. To be frank, but at the same time, I think that we need to shift the paradigm now. It's not about the bridge anymore. We don't need that bridge. Instead, we need to integrate one world into another, so that there is no need for the bridge in the first place, right? So that's what I mean by the silent revolution, when the two worlds are integrating with each other. When, for example, when a user makes a payment in fiat, he's completely unaware that the settlement, in fact, is happening on the blockchain level rails. So that's the silent revolution, right? Another critical component of this shift, I would say, is a regulatory aspect, which is also a very important thing. So regulatory frameworks and I'm glad to observe it right now, by the way, are now starting to accommodate blockchains more and more, blockchain-based payments. And these changes are happening in the background, right? So nobody's making a big fuss about them. Nobody's, posting press releases that the regulator does this, does that. So but these changes are laying the foundation. So much needed for future payments. So yeah, these two things actually is a very big things for me when I talk about silent revolution.
Yeah, I really love that, and I love the way you talk about integration as well, because it is never a either or, right? It is and it's about giving people the option as well, you know.
How often do you personally use this word, bridge the gap, or bridge the two worlds? Do you use it?
Yeah, I mean, I have to say, like the past few years, I have been using that a lot, right? But you're so right. It's shifting from that to integration, and because that bridge is already there, right? The bridge has always been there. It's really about integrating how we merge the two worlds together,
Right.
and setting, I guess, and setting that structure for the future generations, right? And having them in mind, you know, because it's never really about the now. So, which leads me to the next question of, in your opinion, what has changed quietly over the last 3 to 5 years in the way crypto is used for payments?
Oh, that's actually very difficult to pick. There's a lot of things happen.
Oh, I'm sure you can.
But I would maybe notice three things, the most important things for the payments, in my view. First, the stable coins themselves, the role and everything they do for us. They are really rapidly becoming the backbone of the cross-border payments. Look at the numbers, by the way. Like last year, or even now, the stablecoin volumes is around more than actually 60% of the total transaction volumes on all blockchains. And with vast majority of that is being a number of coming from institutional and B2B payments. So it clearly actually demonstrates the popularity of this instrument for cross-border transfers. And also consider this, like in 2024, the volume of stablecoin transactions exceeded $6 trillion, right? It's a pretty big number, $6 trillion. How to compare that? Like, I think the best thing to compare would be to see the numbers of Visa. They did 15 trillions same year in 2024. So stablecoins is already around 40% of the total transaction volumes of Visa, right? And now look at this. 5 months down the road this year, we already hit that $6 trillion. There's no doubt that by the end of this year, we're going to have more than 10 trillion. And looking ahead, I personally would estimate that maybe by 2030, the stablecoin transactions should be maybe more than Visa and MasterCard combined together in terms of transaction processed. So that's the first thing, right? Stablecoins popularity and usability is growing really fast. And it started recently, I think a couple of years back, and growing now at exponential growth. The second thing is adoption of these stablecoins, right? So looking at how financial institutions and infrastructure players like say Visa and MasterCard, for example, use that for their treasury and settlement as a settlement instrument. This is really fascinating. So a good example of the same guys of Visa and MasterCard, as you have maybe heard about this, they had a stablecoin settlement pilot started, if I'm not wrong, in 2021. Only limited number of issuers and acquirers were allowed to be at that pilot, kind of a sandbox. Wirex, by the way, was one of them from the very beginning. So it started with very small number of issuers and acquirers in very limited regions with only one currency. They replaced USD to be replaced with USDC. So what do we see now? These guys, both Visa and MasterCard, are expanding this pilot to the new level, I would say, in 3 different dimensions. First of all, they're adding new currencies. It's not only USD to be replaced with a stable coin, but also Euro. Maybe soon will be a few others. Second dimension, they add new blockchains. It's not only Ethereum or Solana. It's now Polygon, Arbitrum, Stellar, all of them coming. last but not least, they are expanding this pilot to the new issuers and acquirers, new players, right? Which speaks itself for the success of this pilot. And this is just the beginning. Banking, for example, industry as well, absorbing the tokenization platforms, building their tokenization platforms to mint and burn stable coins, which allows them to move their own funds between their own branches, not to be forgotten about even the B2B clients of those clients, right? Of those banks. So the adoption of stable coins is really growing. A third key thing here is user experience has improved. Again, you may know that Wirex back in 2015, almost 10 years ago, was a pioneer for launching first crypto card, right? So back then it was called, by the way, Bitcoin card. So that was interesting innovation when it was the first card to be linked to the crypto account, and you don't need to top up it, right? Fast forward to today, what happens now? You can see like dozens of similar projects worldwide. Everyone is, screaming about that I can link your card to my custodian wallet. But how about non-custodian wallet? That's a new innovation. That's a new thing that will allow a user to maintain and retain his own, personal private keys from his wallet. And this innovation is already here, is already happening and widely adopting. So these three things, again, the stablecoin volumes, way of using, way of adoption, and user experience are the most important things that are happening in the past 3 to 5 years.
Yeah, that's really amazing. And I feel like, not to be biased or anything, but it really does feel like, Wirex does have its finger on the pulse, right? And also just innovating and really forecasting what could be for the future generations. So what role do you think stablecoins and cross-chain infrastructure play in this silent shift, right? Are they the real heroes here? Or, what's going to happen?
I think the beauty of the blockchain, Lianna, is that it has no borders, right? No countries, no borders. If you top up your stablecoin wallet here, so it's actually available everywhere, right? So there is no, let's say, Singapore and UK in this kind of scenario. It's just a blockchain which is everywhere. So if you are a bank and you need to move your funds cross-border, you no longer need these kind of things like complicated multi-layer corresponding bank account relationships. You don't need all of that infrastructure anymore. If you have a stable coin, you don't need to lock your funds in those accounts, corresponding bank accounts, right? You can really move the funds real time at any point, right? And you don't need to wait for the next business day. You can do it even during the night, during the holiday. So that's the beauty of the stable coin. And I think the real beauty of that for the industry is that finality and real time basis of the transaction, I would say. So for example, did you know that Starlink is using stablecoins to repatriate their funds from some African countries, for example? And so that speaks that it's not only for the banks as a financial institutions, but also for businesses that are choosing, speed over cost, for example, and transparency sometimes to move funds faster and more efficient way. Another thing on the cross-chain infrastructure you asked, right? So it comes to play when we have a variety of different stable coins minted by different institutions or different players. And that's actually solving the interoperability problem. So that's why I think all the banks right now need to really look better, look more closer to this technology to optimize and improve their efficiency and their procedures.
I really love that. And I think, it's a growing it's a growing thing, right? And I'm thinking about mass adoption as well. As you were talking about that. Do you think, mass adoption of crypto for payments will happen more by accident, rather than by intention, as more people use it without really knowing it's crypto?
I think more by accident, I would say, and this is how it happens right now, right? So people with the contactless payments, for example, when you pay with your Visa, Mastercard, PayWave or PayPass at the merchant location, do you really think or care how the technology works behind? You just tap the card, right? Wave the card. So similar will be here. In the cases when the experience is seamless, the mass adoption becomes organic. It doesn't need to be intentional.
Mm. It's funny because I've been noticing as well more places not accepting cash.
Oh,
You
yeah?
know,
Yeah.
and I just found it really funny because at one point it was just all about cash, right? And they didn't even trust cards at that time, like cash only. But now they don't want cash.
Yeah. I would say thanks to COVID, thanks to pandemic, I guess, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's very true. What's the hidden cost or opportunity cost for companies that are still ignoring crypto payments?
I think competitive advantage, or rather maybe competitive disadvantage, come first, right here. And everyone in these days actually speak about the cost of blockchain transactions very low, better than Swift and others. I personally believe that the cost doesn't really play a lot of role here. So take JP Morgan, for example, Citibank or any other. Can they absorb the cost of the transaction for the users? Yes, they can. Can they absorb the cost of the opportunity cost, let's say, of the liquidity locked in other bank for months or years? Yeah, they can. But what they cannot afford is when they start losing the clients or losing the market share. I'll give you an example. Like, for example, you have a business in Malaysia and you have large portion of different cross-border markets sending you money from, I don't know, US, UK, Europe, and you have a choice. You want to receive those funds from those clients in these countries in 3 to 5 days and pay $1, for example, for that transfer, or you want to receive that money immediately and pay $2. So I believe that the choice now organically happens towards the second, the latter. They the users, both businesses and individuals, are trying to get the funds faster and utilize them now rather than waiting for them a couple of days and pay nothing for that. People are happy to, let's say, pay extra cost for better experience. So that's why the cost of opportunity for the companies and the banks that are not that ignoring the crypto, as you said, I think is more on a competitive advantage. People will be moving to those who are faster and more agile.
Yeah, I believe that too. And I think, as we've seen, right, like it's convenience. We much prefer convenience in this fast-paced world, right? Do you think we'll ever reach a point where crypto is part of the system so seamlessly that we, even stop calling it crypto altogether?
Oh yeah, I think I'd love to have that actually one day, and I think we're closer than many realize. Closer to that point. It's like with the SWIFT, when we transfer money from one country to another, we don't say like, "Hey, SWIFT me some money," right? You say, "Let's transfer me money." But obviously, behind the scenes, there is a SWIFT ecosystem there, rails there, right? So we know that 90% or maybe majority of the transactions on a cross-border level is moved through SWIFT. So I hope that at some point we will switch from that. I don't personally like the cryptocurrency. We call it cryptocurrency. It's not a currency, to be frank. It's maybe payments, crypto payments. But I hope that one day everything will be so seamless that we will forget about crypto nature behind. And even Swift, I hope, will be using that heavily, so that they will say that they use crypto, but not publicly.
Yeah, no, I get it. And also like, we do forget, right? Because crypto is such a I guess a westernized American kind of definition.
Yeah.
There are other places that might call it a lot nicer, I guess, and it'll just be money.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What trend or development over the next 12 to 24 months will quietly transform how we pay, but probably won't make headlines? If you can maybe just spill the tea on that.
I think the 12 to 24 months is a very short period of time, Lianna. Is especially in a situation when we have quite a big resistance from the market for now yet for this kind of innovation. Everything that is happening happens thanks to the innovators like Wirex and others that is actually trying to overcome all the obstacles possible outside. And it's so heavy to move the things in such a traditional space as finance or payments, but it's happening, right? So that's why I believe that it's not 12 to 24 months, but maybe slightly longer span of time. But what I would emphasize here is an interesting trend, which started maybe a couple of years back, maybe with the first crypto card launched by Wirex back in 2015, when such a traditional instrument like a card would be considered no longer as a payment instrument, but rather as a form factor to make a payment, where you don't have an account linked to that card, or you don't have an account on the card, let's say, right? But you have a wallet on the blockchain, and your card is just I would say, a piece of plastic, highly technologically advanced, that opens you a gateway, let's say, to that wallet, right? So that's the trend of shift in paradigm of the users when the meaning of the card is changing. Similar comes to the bank account, the traditional bank account, or we call it IBAN, right? So when you will have that IBAN on the traditional rails in the traditional banks, but there will be no money in that. Your money will be on the blockchain, and you can move the money cross-border, fiat to fiat, using your blockchain account or wallet linked to that IBAN. And that's the trend is happening now really fast, really rapidly. And I hope to see really interesting developments very soon on that.
Wow, I'd really love to, one day hear more and unpack that a little bit more, because that sounds really interesting. But that wraps up our episode, Slava. And thank you so much for all the insights and giving us a closer look at how crypto is quietly, reshaping payments. It's a story many don't just see it quite yet, right? And it's been a pleasure having you on the Wirex Podcast.
Thanks, Lianna. Hopefully it was very useful and very interesting. Yeah, keep an eye on what we are launching. Very soon there will be a lot of interesting news from Wirex. Obviously, all of them would be good. Thanks.
Definitely. And Wirex definitely has its finger on its pulse, right? And to all our listeners, if this episode changed how you think about crypto and payments, don't forget to subscribe and share. Until next time.